Can you hear me, Carrie? Just want to make sure. Okay, perfect.
Right now? Go ahead. Yes. Oh. Okay. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. and welcome. For the audience here tonight, the City of Glendora utilizes a hybrid meeting format to allow for participation both in person and virtually. In consideration of others and the business conducted tonight, please silence your phones and any electronic devices and refrain from speaking unless recognized. Again, this is a public meeting for the community of Glendora. We appreciate and respect your participation here this evening. Madam Clerk, would you like to conduct the roll call?
Thank you, President. So at this time, we'll conduct an oral roll call and request each trustee respond with present when their name is called. Trustee Flowers,
Present.
Trustee Johnson,
Present.
Trustee Tolan,
Present.
Vice President Landman,
Present.
and President Chu.
Present.
All members are present. Thank you.
So today we were supposed to have a closed session, but we will not be having it tonight and it will be rescheduled for a future meeting. Erica, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we are now on to reordering of and additions to the agenda. Does anyone wish to reorder or add to the agenda?
If I may, I would like to request that item, special item number 4 be heard before special item number 3, because we have visiting staff with us this evening.
Do we have any objections to the reorder?
Nope.
Seeing none, we will have special item number 4 be heard before special item number 3.
Right. Now on to public comment. I will open the public comment period now, and I invite members of the public to address the library board. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes, speaking once on both on and off agenda items. All questions should be directed through the presiding officer. This is your time to speak uninterrupted, and if you are in attendance, please fill out a speaker card and submit it to the recording admin before the close of the public comment period. Once recognized, speakers should advance to the podium, state your name and the subject matter you wish to discuss. If you're participating via Zoom, select the raise hand icon and Zoom before the close of the public comment period. Once recognized, you will be unmuted, state your name and the subject matter you wish to discuss. I now invite those who are in attendance who have submitted a public comment card to speak.
We have no public comment cards that have been received. We have no emails as well, and there is no one on Zoom that would like to speak.
Perfect. So then I will just close the public comment period then. So now on to board statements and reports. Does any trustee have any reports or announcements? No? Anyone on Zoom? No? Okay. Now on to director and staff liaison and attorney statements. Agenda item number 2, reports from the library director and library divisions. Director Stone?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. As usual, in your packet is a variety of documents, including our narrative report, a statistical report, and also in this case, some excerpts from the most recent community survey. And as usual, I will just provide a couple of observations and updates since the packet went to press. I'll start with the statistics report. We have had a chance to look at the underlying detailed statistics that go with this, so basically supply the statistics for the summary that you get. You do see the detailed statistics a couple of times a year. They do give us a slightly different perspective on the statistics than the summary that you get. In first of all, they are more detailed, as you would guess, and also they compare fiscal year to fiscal year rather than just month to month or a 12-month moving window. So I just wanted to make some comments about the underlying statistics that might shed light on the summary that is available in the board packet, which of course is available to the public online. First of all, largely speaking, we are exactly where we'd expect to be at a third of the way through the fiscal year. If you're looking at the 2 fiscal years side by side, the current one and the previous, but most of our statistics are right there at that 1/3 mark. Couple of comments about things that are a little different. First of all, the Wi-Fi, which does feed in, as you know, to the statistics summary. It's still, that statistic is still pretty changeable. We are, have, as you know, in the past checked very conscientiously with IT to make sure those numbers are real. We still haven't quite figured out what's impacting them. We did see a big drop between October and November of last year. So it'll be interesting to see what happens between this month and next month this year and see if we're starting to see some sort of pattern emerge. But anyway, those numbers are still quite dynamic. There are some places where we're starting to gain ground as the pandemic becomes more familiar. I guess I don't know what stage we are at in the pandemic, so I'm not quite sure how to talk about it in terms of it being over or still underway, but it is more familiar. So, and the things that we're starting to see some progress are in the number of self-check uses, the number of library visitors, which takes into account lots of different aspects of library visitation, but prior to the pandemic, we were generally around 5,000, a little bit over 5,000 visitors a week. We are now back up to over 2,700 a week. So we're making progress there. We're also seeing gaining ground in program attendance and volunteer hours and in social media posts and in people reached. And again, this is when you look at the fiscal years compared with each other, which is a slightly different perspective than you get from the summary. We are continuing to add more and more ebooks to the collection. And finally, there are a couple of new statistics. First of all, since we just launched the library document station, we are now tracking scans, faxes, and copies made that way. We've had 274 of those just since October. And also we are now tracking some non-traditional circulating items, checkout items, which is specifically our parks passes. So those are some things in the underlying detailed statistics that we had a chance to dig into since the board packet was compiled for you. Let's see. And then a couple of other things to add to the narrative portion of the reports that are available online and in the packet. First of all, the Librarian 2 recruitment, which we reported on the narrative, that has actually reopened. We are continuing to work with Human Resources on strategies to communicate the attractions of this position in hopes to get more candidates for that opening. The Glendora Public Library Friends Foundation, as you heard last month when they came for Friends of Libraries Week, has approved our grant requests in the amount of $428,222 for fiscal year 23. They have since then given us the official paperwork, and we are tentatively scheduled to take that to council for appropriation at their December meeting. And finally, I wanted to mention the communication plan. I know you're interested in hearing about that from the city. I've been in touch with our digital media specialist, and he says that the scope of that communication plan is changing in terms of the time span that it will cover, largely because it's being impacted by the enterprise resource planning software. You may have heard of that referred to as the ERP, citywide ERP system. And so there's some impacts of that are kind of adjusting the time frame for the communication plan. So you'll see it's still on our standard year workflow as an item that we know needs to be scheduled, and we'll just keep checking in and find out when that presentation can be made for you. So other than that, the report in your packet stands, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Does anyone have any questions or comments? Anybody on Zoom? No? So I do have one question, and this might be for Cindy. I see that there's mention of the new Teen Idea Lab. Could we hear more information about that?
So the Teen Idea Lab came, has been an idea that's in the works. As you know, we've been searching for ways to engage our 10 and 11-year-olds when those kids were not able to volunteer anymore because the volunteer age was raised to 12. We started seeking out ways to engage those kids, to teach them some of the leadership skills, give them some of those, like I said, those skills before they're able to volunteer. So once they're 12, they're great. You know, they've already got some of that background in to submit their applications. So the staff got together and brainstormed and worked with some of the youth advisory board kids to find out what might be attractive to them, and bringing those kids in and having lectures or activities just based on leadership skills wasn't so much an exciting thing. So we had to kind of backtrack a little bit and figure out what would be. And so the idea developed out of a project-based experience that we could then teach the leadership skills as part of the project. So the youth advisory boards are serving as the mentors or the leaders of the group, and the kids are coming together. Their first project will be a hydroponic garden that they'll be creating. So they're doing the research, what materials, what are the purposes behind creating such a garden. And so the kids are working in groups. So they're building some of those teamwork skills. They're building some research skills. And so we're hoping to develop a lot of those skills as they go. And we'll see how the projects go. We may see if we can invite them to a board meeting towards the end of the year to present some of their projects. No promises yet. We got to see how projects work. But that's so their first meeting was last Thursday. Right now the plan is to meet monthly. If they need to meet more regularly to work on other projects, then we'll absolutely increase that frequency. And there was 12 kids at that meeting, I believe.
And remind me the age of the youth advisory board.
12 and up.
12 and up. Okay. Yes. And okay, so the people part of the Teen Idea Lab are under,
For the most part, are younger.
okay, got it.
And then the older kids are serving as like the mentors or the leaders of the group, and then helping because the 10 and 11-year-olds can be a little young. And so, but they are learning, and it was really neat. I stopped by for a little bit on Thursday to see them trying to figure out how to work as a team. You know, there was some that it was harder to keep them focused on task. And so there's others trying to bring them back in. And so it's leadership skills for the youth advisory board as they're trying to help the younger kids develop the projects, but also teaching some of the other skills that are needed through projects.
I love that. I love that idea. I really hope that they can come by and show us what they have come up with. And I think that actually falls in line with the community survey report, how people are wanting to see more like greenery and gardens around town. And maybe that's something that you guys can help with too. I don't
So
know.
we'll see. The
Yeah.
idea is that this first one is a garden. But after that, we'll see, the idea for the Idea Lab is for them to develop projects that real life problems. So not just make up, oh, let's just build a robot, but actually have some sort of a response to something.
Yeah. a
So the
motivation.
hydroponic garden saves water and, there's a lot of different features to that type of gardening. So that's why that one. So the kids will be helping to develop what the future projects are as well.
Oh, I love that. I can't wait to stop by one day to go
You are
see.
welcome whenever.
I'll add it to my calendar. I think. Yeah, no, I think the only other comment I have is just to point out in the summary of the survey, community survey, that the library, the community responds very well to the library and they're very satisfied with everything that the library provides. So a round of applause for the staff for helping make that statistic. And now, okay, no other comments or questions? No? Okay. Moving on to special items, agenda item number 4, report on the meeting room and facility usage. Library Aide Waters.
Okay, hello. I have not been called special item for a long time. So feel free to, who's flipping? Oh, okay, feel free. As you may know, we have 2 facilities that we rent out to the public. Bidwell Forum, you're probably very well acquainted with, having met there before. And the Friends Room is mostly used for story time, but also sometimes for things like the other night. They had a special dinner after hours for a group of music judges that were over at APU for a concert. So these are our 2 that we have to rent out. So community members can engage, collaborate, learn, and connect with each other via continued access to the library's meeting rooms. It meets our strategic framework connections, the proximity factor, bringing the world of ideas geographically closer. These are some changes. Prior to 2016, private parties were not really done. Just nonprofits and commercial enterprises, insurance companies, things like that. So this was a change. The staff crafted and presented changes to the policy, to the board. One of the objectives of the 2013-2018 strategic plan, and the board approved it in 2016. So from then on, we've had some private parties, weddings, things like that, as well as the nonprofits and city departments that come in. So Bidwell Forum's been available since the library was built in '72. Very large maximum capacity. I don't know that that's ever been tried. Yes. Has it for standing room? I haven't seen pictures. Recommended 200 auditorium seating, things like Battle of the Books, big items like that. There's a kitchenette available with just a fridge and a little sink for groups that are having parties. And we do offer a laptop with, you've probably seen the big screen that comes down, projector, and microphones are available. So the plaza is a little bit separate. You can reserve the plaza if you reserve Bidwell Forum, not just the plaza. It's not a thing on its own. Possibly requires a special use permit from the city. Not in every case, but in most cases. So it's we'd have to look at each one as it's requested. And we do not roll the tables and chairs out from Bidwell for people to use out there. They have to rent their own tables and chairs outside. This is the little kitchenette, basically just a sink and a fridge, paper towels just to the right out of the picture. This is great if somebody's having a party for cleanup when they're done, washing things up. I know sometimes we have library events in there with lots of mess. And it's good to be able to wash stuff off there. The Friends Room's only been available since 2009 when the addition was built. Maximum capacity 133. Story times kind of get up there to 100 or so these days. It's pretty popular. Recommended 50 with auditorium seating, classroom type training settings we get sometimes. They have a big screen TV, not a big projector screen coming down from the ceiling, but we have a big screen TV and we can plug our laptop into it. It's a small enough room that you don't really need microphones. This is testing my vision at this distance. I should turn this way. So fees, established by the most recently adopted City of Glendora Master Schedule of Fees for service. There are two categories of fees, basically: nonprofit, Glendora resident nonprofits, and all other groups, which is private parties or for-profit corporations and so on. Qualifying factors for resident nonprofit groups may include status of a sponsor as a government registered charity or other confirmable not-for-profit, non-commercial venture, at least 51% Glendora residents and business owners among either sponsoring agency members or public event participants. So for nonprofits, it's a 2-hour minimum rental. No fees or deposits required except in unusual cases. Sometimes, as I mentioned, we had a staffer stay after, I think, 3 extra hours the other night in the Friends Room. And the group pays $25 an hour for that to get a staffer to stay after, in case, I think in that case it was 7 to 10 p.m. in the Friends Room. And we also have to have a staffer who's willing to do it. And so we tell groups up front, if we don't have anyone who's going to volunteer, we can't do it even for $25 an hour. Even more unusual case, alarm response. If police have to come, that's $100 to the group. And if you use the plaza, if you have alcohol, food, et cetera, it may require permits. Depends on if the alcohol is for sale. If it's not, generally not. So all of the groups, mostly for-profit groups and so on, the fees are, again, 2-hour minimum rental, both in Bidwell Forum and also the Friends Room. Bidwell costs $100 an hour. If you want to add the plaza to your rental, then you just add $50 to that. The Friends Room is $75. Facility deposit goes to for-profit, generally, not the nonprofits. That's only, again, it's a rare case they would not get that back. That's really in our facility policy. There's a clause that says if you cancel a week before the event, we keep your facility deposit. I don't know that that's ever been done. Cleaning deposit, of course, they get back if they don't trash the place. Generally, that goes back. Microphone fee is just $10 per mic. To bring down the projector screen or to just use the laptop is $25, just a flat rate, not per hour. Again, staff are on duty after regular hours, $25 an hour. And again, the alarm response and the plaza use permit possibility. Who are these people that rent our meeting rooms? Nonprofits include local humanitarian service groups, employee unions, charities, historical societies, parenting and homeschool groups, university and alumni organizations, government and election groups, and many Glendora city departments. Many city departments. Private parties include health insurance companies, law firms, financial businesses, corporations, wedding receptions, baby showers. We just had a funeral reception today, and birthdays and things like that. Other factors, again, with the special use permit fee, sometimes the plaza requires that. If you're cooking food out on the plaza, if you bring in a taco cart or something like that, you need to get probably a health permit and also the special use permit fee. Alcohol for sale, sometimes organizations have an open bar or something as part of their event. You need to get an ABC license required. Liability insurance is generally for private party rental, not so much for nonprofits, but we usually require a $1 million policy with the city of Glendora named as additional insured. And that costs the renter $50 or $100, depending on where they get their policy. These are some usage stats just for Bidwell. Just through October, since we don't have November numbers yet, 101 rentals so far. Again, city departments, 2/3 of what we use Bidwell for. 28% not-for-profits, so Girl Scouts, Kiwanis, Historical Society, and then 7% things like private parties, like the funeral reception, and we have several baby showers this last month. So this is 3 years ago, pre-COVID, same months through October in Bidwell. Again, almost 2/3 city departments. The numbers don't change too much over the last 3 years. 7% stays the same with private parties. This is the Friends Room 2022 through October. 16 rentals, a little bit different stats. So 50% city departments, 44% not-for-profits. Didn't have any private parties through October. We just had one in November. Again, before COVID, about the same, 56%. Same numbers. Hasn't changed too much in the Friends Room. It's mostly for story time, and those numbers, which we consider city departments, are not part of this city department number. That was kept out of this stat. So the process is, people usually call, they email me or call, they hear that I'm involved in it, they call, or they ask who can I ask about these details. The first thing I do is confirm the date that they have in mind. Sometimes it's available. Sometimes I say, well, after 1 o'clock, you can come in. There's somebody in the morning there. We let the applicant know about all these fees and permits, about the alcohol sales and so on, and also the deadlines. We'd like payment for, if it's a for-profit event, we'd like the payment 2 weeks before the event. We assist with any additional requirements such as insurance, special event permits. We connect them with the person in the city that helps them with the permits, and also give them some details about where they can get liability insurance if they don't know already, if they don't already have a policy. Once we get the application, I read it over, confirm the details are as we talked about. Sometimes there are things that are added that we didn't talk about on the phone, and which requires a follow-up email. Obtain management approval from the library director, and then we prepare and mail invoice for any fees. Prior to the event, we ensure the meeting room and AV equipment is as requested. Recent changes, short staffing with our aides, which means that we have been telling groups we're unable to provide setup of tables and chairs, so they have to do it themselves. I haven't anyone say that was a deal breaker. They're happy with doing that. We will still continue to reset the room as neutral after events, so we'll clear the floor basically and set it back with no tables and chairs. We will be looking at streamlining setups once we are able to offer them again. Applicants will be able to select out of 5 standard setups, i.e. auditorium style, classroom style. Right now we have on our application those 2 styles, but we want to create something, I think even a visual aid that shows all 5 styles, so they can simply say, we want this style, and then they'll be able to figure out how many tables and chairs in that style that they want. Questions? I can read that.
Thank you for reporting this to us. Does anyone have questions or comments? Anyone on Zoom? Looks like none. All right. Well, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, now on to special item number 3, strategic framework review and strategic responses update for October 2022. Director Stone?
Thank you very much. So just as a reminder, we do this every few months. It's not perfectly regular every quarter because we have other reports mixed in, usually a couple times a year, that go into great detail about our goals and that sort of thing. And there's so much overlap with the strategic framework that we try and fit this one in between so that we're not overloading you with basically the same information repackaged all together in the same month. So here we are in November. It's a perfect month to review a few things since the last time you heard about the strategic framework and our responses to it. Let's see here. Next slide, please. And next slide, please. Okay, so just going to talk about what's happened with each of our responsibilities just in the last few months. First of all, we're going to start out with what we call our proximity services. This is based on the idea that as corporeal beings, we need to be near data. We need to be physically near it, whether that's online or near books or near each other. But bodily, we actually have to be geographically somehow proximal to our information in the world of ideas. Next slide, please. So some ways that we have succeeded in this since July of 2022 include, believe it or not, we haven't talked since then about this. So looking back to our 50th anniversary at our address, 140 South Glendora, our celebration of that. At the very beginning of July, we had our wonderful pre-movie event at Movie in the Park. And that was, among other things, a way to reintroduce the community to the brick and mortar library as a information hub, and to see the building as a component of a larger service package. And of course, we had great gift to the community in the In-N-Out burgers and ice cream treats. There was also a walk through history, story stroll, scavenger hunt that highlighted the e-library and our then new mobile app, and also fun facts about 140 South Glendora and fortune cookies. And the whole event was a wonderful evening. And I thought, wow, yes, we haven't talked about that. So it seems, long time ago, but it was just in July. Next slide, please. Some other ways that we get the world of ideas nearby to our community are we go out, our staff goes out and participates in events such as the Movies in the Park, not just the one on July 8th, and also Glendora PD's National Night Out. And even more recently, we were at the Holiday Stroll. Next slide, please. So again, ways that we are getting people nearby the world of ideas include giving them access to self-service technology and also updated desktop computer technology through our library document station and the replacement of our public computers. Next slide, please. Our online library speakers consortium has meant that our public is able to engage with and learn from best-selling authors and especially thought leaders, experts in their fields. We have had since July over 380 session views of fiction and historical fiction related programming, history, leadership, parenting, and more. Next slide, please. The library building itself, in addition to being, of course, a headquarters for our expert staff, is also a place of gathering and a place of, housing materials. It brings proximity to the world of ideas in many different ways. So the ways we have been taking care of and improving this gathering space, including working on our boiler, with Public Works. We are continuing to meet with element designers to move forward the idea of a more mobile main floor. And we're constantly working on making the space safer, most recently participating in the city's earthquake drill and also assigning a floor warden to help ensure evacuation protocols and that sort of thing. Next slide, please. More things about our physical space. We installed some metal fencing near the elevator and boiler room exterior doors that makes that a cleaner and more sanitary environment. And also getting ready for the next 50 years of the facility, as we have been working with the rest of the city on this structural analysis, and that has gone out to bid, and we've been reviewing the proposals from those agencies that are interested in helping us take a look at the structure of the library. Next slide, please. Okay, so in addition to needing to bring people nearby the world of information, there are skills associated with being able to navigate that world. We need to develop throughout our lifetime to be able to participate in the world of ideas. So the way we've been doing that in the last few months since July, next slide, please. Include, of course, the Gemstone Summer Discovery Challenge, which ended in July. It started, of course, last fiscal year and ended in July. Over 1,600 participants, so 25,000 hours of reading, 5,800 activities. But what all of that means is that those folks were maintaining or improving their learning habits and reading habits, learning new skills, trying out new hobbies, and exploring the world. I mean, that's what the impact of all of that is. Next slide, please. Speaking of learning, again, as part of Summer Discovery Challenge, among the things that people learned, for example, were boosting creativity and memory with geocaching and also making healthy eating out in the outdoors more convenient. Next slide, please. Also, other things that we do to encourage this lifelong skills building in terms of the world of ideas is literacy skills for all ages. And in early literacy skills, that includes letter knowledge, vocabulary building, narrative skills, and all of those are part of the story times that families and children participate in. Next slide, please. Real-time tutoring and homework help and skills building for adults. We have had those for a while. One new thing that's rolled out is that they're now available 24 hours a day online, thanks to a new program from the California State Library. And there are a couple of cases in here where we have some of these wins, so to speak, have been us being able to channel these new resources that are available through places like the State Library. And I count them as wins for us. Well, they're wins for the public, no matter who provides them. But they're also sort of wins for the library, because even though these resources are made available by these agencies, there is certainly an investment of staff time, as Cindy Romero can tell you, to get them configured and up and running and available through our venues, like our website and that sort of thing. We have to work with IT and in some cases with other agencies to make sure everything is configured and sort of all the agreements are in place to have all of that happen. So we're very grateful to all those agencies that work with us to bring that to the public. Next slide, please. Some more things in terms of human development. Our teens are learning team building, are enhancing their reading comprehension, are reading for pleasure, learning leadership skills, gaining volunteer hours. As you heard, the Idea Lab also has its own outcomes in terms of just projects and making an impact on their own environment. And that's all part of the Youth Advisory Board and the Battle of the Books. Next slide, please. So we can get people nearby in the world of ideas. We can teach them the skills to use it. But every human body is different. Every mind is different. And we need to make sure that we are addressing the needs of a physiologically and neurologically diverse community. Next slide, please. So some things that we are making progress on, and this is one of the ones that we are learning and expanding our own knowledge and skill base and doing and working with the community. So since July 2022, we have started offering the opportunity for greater print motivation and phonological awareness. Is a couple of examples of things that sensory sensitive children and their families can practice and learn at the library now, because we're offering a separate calm, sensory sensitive small group environment story time to help with children with those needs. Next slide, please. And a wonderful thing that helps both the volunteers and the audience members is that we have American Sign Language students from Glendora High School coming to story times, and the participants gain exposure to American Sign Language. They actually learn some signs. They learn a little bit about the hearing impaired community, and also the students get a chance to practice and teach their skills. Next slide, please. So switching a little bit from the human side of the world of ideas to the data side. Data decay. And so one of the things that we are responsible for is just making sure that those ideas are always accessible in their quote unquote physical forms. That might be electronic as well, but we just need to make sure that they endure in their packages. So next slide, please. One thing we are doing in these most recent months is looking at ways to get 24/7 wherever you are online access to historical newspapers. And the first thing we need to do is establish some criteria to evaluate the numerous different platforms that are available for doing this out there, because there are a lot of agencies that will convert and or house online resources like this, and we need to decide what our criteria are as we select an agency to do this. So it's what we've been working on since July in this realm. Next slide, please. So another thing about data is that they're growing and they just get messier. It's a growing chaos, right? So we are here to help provide order for that. Next slide, please. So one of the ways, a big way that that's been improved since July is that the online catalog and the behind the scenes management system, this is basically our ERP system called Polaris, went through a gigantic upgrade again, thanks largely on our end to Cindy Romero. And because of that, customers actually have enhanced access and additional features, a new look and feel, more relevant results as they search for materials. They're able to see images of the items more easily, and it is also ADA compliant in its presentation. So again, in terms of being able to help the community sort through the just deluge of data that are out there, this is one of the key things that's happened since July. Next slide, please. Another thing that we are doing, again, this is through the state library's resources, are offering improved access to numerous things that help with job seeking. So that's everything from resume and interview skills to navigating VA benefits. And this is all through the Career Pathways project that the California State Library is putting on. And again, in a world where it's there's just a lot to learn and a lot to sort through and a lot to do. This is one of the ways that we're helping make that more organized. Next slide, please. Also, a couple of things we do on the main floor in the library. We have our new mobile service desk, and we are continuing to dedicate and rededicate our sort of adaptable resource center, as we call it. And that helps us help customers on the main floor when and where they need it, and also to provide a dedicated computer station for seasonal and topical information, such as the elections, which of course has been such a hot topic lately. Next slide, please. And I apologize for this. This was I think a duplicate slide from all of our copying and pasting. So we'll just skip past that one. All right. So let's go on to interpretation and context. So basically the idea here is that ideas are up to interpretation. And so one of our responsibilities is to not necessarily weigh in on right and wrong, but to give our public all the tools that they need to assess what might be influencing the ideas and information that they are looking at, and give them those tools. Next slide, please. So one of the things that we do, and it's a good to highlight this every once in a while. It's an ongoing thing rather than more like a one-time score, but we do it all the time. And it's the idea that, what you see in a library's collection, whether it's the books and videos on the shelves when you walk in, or whether it's the electronic resources, those are curated by expert staff. And if you think about the amount of information that's out there, whether it's physical or electronic, what the staff does, among other things, when they select those, is that they make sure that that collection it contains materials and information presenting all points of view on current and historical issues. And that's straight from American Library Association's Library Bill of Rights. Basically, the idea here is that we help the public discover all sides of the topics that they're looking at. And that takes intent, and it takes expert staff, and we do it all the time, every day. It's kind of an underlying thing. So every once in a while, it's good to pull it out as a win, because it's a big investment that the city makes in its library services to the community. Next slide, please. So another aspect of data and the world of ideas is that basically, they can become property, right? Ideas and data. And the questions become, who has access to that? Who owns it? Does it need to be protected because it's owned, or does it need to be made available to people who might not have access to it financially or economically? Both sides of that question, right? It's just like any other kind of property. Next slide, please. So a couple of things about this idea. And as the library space, the physical library building itself is a key component in terms of the exchange of ideas and as a public forum for the exchange of them. We have been working with risk management since July on the use of public spaces and what sort of the rights are and what people can expect in terms of their ability to use them. So we've been in some training with risk management so that the staff is educated about that. And also you have one of the wins here in that when you reviewed and updated the policy on collection development, you basically affirmed the community's right to intellectual freedom when you did that, because that's a core component of that policy that we use to build the collection of materials. Next slide, please. And finally, in terms of the 8 responsibilities, the world of ideas requires resources, natural ones, energy, material, anything like that. So the question becomes, how do we protect the world of ideas in a world where resources are not infinite? Next slide, please. So one way that we do this, and again, this is an ongoing one and it deserves pointing out every once in a while, is that the electronic resources that we provide provide access to information that is updated automatically. And that seems like a pretty simple idea, but before electronic information was available, currency was a matter of getting paper copies shipped to you constantly throughout the year and having to replace items or interfile them and keep them updated in paper. And that was a much different procedure than providing this kind of throughput electronically to those resources that are updated automatically. So it's good every once in a while to point out that that not only does it save on paper, but it actually can increase the validity of the information when it's curated correctly that the community has access to. Next slide, please. Now, this isn't technically one of our 8 responsibilities in terms of the world of ideas, but there are some things that just have to happen behind the scenes to make all those other things possible. So we always keep this category to mention a few of the things that are happening backstage, so to speak. Next slide, please. So one of those things is, of course, our relationship with the Friends Foundation. We're so pleased about that. And since we reported last in July, they had their wonderful Night on the Plaza event. We've also had our Friends of Libraries Week. And we just want to take a moment and say we're so grateful to the Friends Foundation for choosing to support the community by supporting the library. Next slide, please. So I've mentioned before that the building is headquarters to an expert staff, and it's that expert staff that helps curate the world of ideas and helps organize it for people, and of course helps plan all of the ways that people connect with that world of ideas. And we are administration is, working hard to get more access to those experts. We do have some vacancies. Those recruitments are in progress. We're working hard with human resources. Thank you to them for all their assistance with that. And in addition to filling those vacancies, we are, HR is also negotiating the consultant contract for our upcoming classification and compensation study for those expert staff. Next slide, please. And here's another win for the Board of Library Trustees. You have, helped potentially remove barriers to accessing information, as you recommended that we ask council to discontinue our fines for overdue library materials. So thank you for that. Next slide, please. And that's the last few months of our responses to our strategies for serving the public, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Does anybody have any questions or comments?
I do. I was just curious if under the section for accessibility, if the library is looking at possibly, or if it's already been done, having dyslexia topics presented, because University of Laverne has a whole training section.
Interesting.
And I don't know if the library would be interested.
We are always interested in making sure that everyone in the community is able to interact with the world of ideas. So that's a great topic. We don't have anything formally in the pipeline right now, but thank you for the connection, and we will definitely be looking into that.
Okay, and also Trustee Johnson is like very, very well versed with dyslexia. She is like a pro, so she's an expert also. So
Excellent, excellent, great resources to have. Thank you for bringing that to us through your service. So we'll thank you for that. I've made a note.
I'd also like to add to that, not directly related to dyslexia, but I went to some of the libraries in Orange County, and I saw that they have been awarded grants to have these sort of like kits that focus on different aspects like mental health, Alzheimer's, dementia. And I think from what I've read is that they like applied for it, and then the library, I think it was the California Library Association, sent them those kits for patrons to check out. I don't know, is that something that we have? Do we have any kits like that?
I'll
We
have
do?
Cindy speak to that.
Yeah, please.
So yes, before COVID hit, we were part of that same grant program. And so we do have kits. We have not decided to circulate the kits. Specifically the Alzheimer's kits, a lot of those went to the Alzheimer's support group that meets out of the LaFetra Center, that they could, and then we would change them out there. Rather than having them available at the library, we were trying to target them specifically to people that might need those resources. So we do have them. Unfortunately, one of our vacant positions was the person that was overseeing that project. So once we get that position filled, we'll be re-looking at how we can make those resources available.
Perfect. That's awesome to hear that we have those. I also think it'd be a good idea too for the Idea Lab if they wanted to brainstorm ways of what other kits that the library might need to offer to different groups of people or communities. That'd be cool too.
Sure, we will put it on their list because their list is going to grow.
Yeah, they'll have a lot of projects that they can run with. Any other questions or comments?
I just wanted to mention, just sort of riffing on this idea of providing those kits to the support group. One thing that we are learning is that it is the primary thing is to make sure that the resources and the services get to the people and the places where they are needed. And I thank you for your support of that idea. So it may be that there are things that we don't like hold in our own collection or on our own shelves or put on as a library program, either on our own site or out in the world, but we are constantly trying to make connections between the agencies that provide those resources and the people in the public who need them. And that is, in a sense, our expertise doing that is as much a library service as holding the actual materials ourselves. And I know that the board has always been very supportive of that concept. So I just wanted to share that with the public too. And thank you for that, because that comment Cindy made about how we disposed of those kits was just made me when I wanted to build on that concept. Thank you.
Awesome. So let's move on to the consent calendar, items number 5 through 7. Items on the consent calendar will be enacted by one motion without individual discussion unless a board member has requested it to be removed for separate discussion. Does anyone wish to pull or comment on any of the consent calendar items? Seeing no one, then do I have a motion to approve what we have?
I would like to make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Do we have a second? We have a second. Okay, so we have a motion was made by Vice President Landman, seconded by Trustee Tolan. So I will now call for an oral roll call vote. Trustee Flowers,
Aye.
Trustee Johnson,
Aye.
Trustee Tolan,
Aye.
Vice President Landman,
Aye.
President Chu.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, on to board agenda items. Item number 8, discussion of the 50th anniversary of the current facility for the Glendora Public Library requested by Landman and Chu. Director Stone.
Well, welcome back. We are still in our 50th, year celebration of being at 140 South Glendora. Next slide, please. And just a reminder that as we have celebrated, not only just, marking something wonderful and taking that opportunity to, to celebrate, we also had some other goals in mind. Among the several are basically seeing the community, seeing the building as a component of a larger service package, and also learning about the library's projects to capture, preserve, and share the community's own resources of local history. Next slide. And also to gain a greater understanding of the role of the library building and the ways that the community can help develop its future. Those are just some of the goals that we have identified this whole year long. Next slide, please. Also a reminder of the approaches that we have used. Obviously, as we have had sort of subcommittees, we've been making sure to be Brown Act compliant, always getting guidance from library management administration, and being respectful of the city media specialists' time and resources, staying aware of the roles of official and unofficial messaging, and also just making sure that as we pursue these things, we're trying to contribute directly to the goals that have been listed earlier. Next slide, please. The Friends Foundation was able to provide grant funding, and we have obviously submitted and gotten approval from the foundation for new grants for the current fiscal year to continue that. Once that has been appropriated, we will be updating figures for you. Hopefully the council will go ahead and appropriate those next month. But we thank them for underwriting these celebrations and the goals and the outcomes that we've identified. Next slide, please. And this is our sort of flow chart, components chart of the different approaches, celebratory events, commemorative art, informational programs, decorating and branding and local history. And I would say the biggest movement here since our last report is that the lanyards that the staff selected and designed are on site. Stop by, you can do your library activity and get your public lanyard edition. And then the staff also has their own lanyards. So cheers to them. And I know there's going to be some updates from the library board as well. Next slide, please. So basically, we are here tonight to hear reports, to continue the discussion and provide direction as needed. Any questions? Next slide. And anyone has, of course, their own things to share.
Well, here's the biggest update. Okay, so St. Lucy's is on board, Glendora High School, as well as Charter Oak High School. They're all on board for the art project. We just have to determine when it would be completed by. So the next step is we're hoping for a group meeting, or at least like a site visit with the art teachers at the not colleges, the high schools. And let me see. The possible dates are for February 28th to have like kind of like an art exhibit, and otherwise in April for is it library week?
There's a National Library Week, often extended to National Library Month. So April is that, it's that celebration.
Oh, hopefully it will be February 28th. So it's like the ribbon on top of the whole library's 50th celebration year, so that's the biggest thing. And honestly, I would like to have the students come and the schools come to the board, to be honored and recognized as well.
I think there are lots of possibilities for sort of, an artist reception and or presentations. All of that can be worked out, I think, once we sort of understand the arc of the program.
Yes, but everybody's excited.
That's awesome. Can you please, for the audience, review what this art exhibit or project would look like?
Thank you for reminding me. Yes, I keep, so it's Visions of 2072 is the theme, and the students, at this point, the art medium would be, is yet to be determined. I think a mixed medium would be like cool. Glendora High School is talking about graphic arts, and possibly tiles, as well as St. Lucy's, their program, they have a lot of different options that it could be oil, could be sculpture, and Charter Oak, we're still talking about that. So I did get an email back, but he was Mr. Long's going on break for Thanksgiving, and so had family things going on. But in December, though, we'll be running around, and so it's hopefully for the beginning part of the semester, second semester, for the project to be done. So hopefully submissions prior to like February 20th. And I think February 20th was about the date.
Yeah,
around that
we
time.
really haven't, it depends on what we want the outcome of the projects to be. I mean, basically the broad strokes is that we're looking forward to having them on display in the library for a few months. And exactly where and what timing kind of depends on the three schools and their curriculum requirements. Also, there's been some talk about whether or not it should be a contest or basically a simpler, straightforward exhibition. And so all of those factors, when we get together to talk with the schools, will kind of impact the timing. And also, I would think the media that will be used, because it depends on how consistent the media need to be, like, for example, for judging purposes or for display purposes or anything like that. So, but basically the idea being that that the artwork goes on display in the library for some months, and that we have some sort of event to welcome the artists and to celebrate them. and their ideas of what 2072 is going to look like.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Yeah.
This seems so cool.
I think it's going to be so fun,
Mhm.
you know, and that the high school students, they'll be just probably overjoyed that their work is on display, kind
Yeah,
of like
for
a
sure.
gallery.
Yeah, so what would you suggest would be the next steps for us to do? Should we just have a discussion right now as to some of the details and agree on some of those things? Or for right now, are you currently the only one on the board overseeing this part of the project?
And at this point, I've been the point person
Okay,
for
do you
everything.
want someone else to partner with you?
I think.
Because I know in the
it's-
past we had like 2 people for each of our committees, but it's totally up to you.
Yeah.
If you would like extra help, I'm sure one of us would be more than happy to.
If it helps with the picture, she has been meeting with me as well as occasionally with Maggie Lara of the
Uh-huh.
Friends Foundation.
Okay,
So and that's just to add to your discussion if you want to figure out the team for that.
I'll leave this up to you, your decision.
Well, it's going okay right now, so
Okay,
that'll be good.
okay,
Yeah, I really want to, thank Erica she's put in a lot of time on this and I think the next step is really going to be trying to get all the possible players from the different schools, meaning the teachers, together in some way, hopefully to walk the site and just to talk about the shape of it, the timing of it that works for their curricula, the realities of a contest versus an exhibition and that sort of thing. And I think that we probably need to have that discussion with them. This is my 2 cents before we really can come to the library board for any decision making or
Okay.
anything like that. I don't think I think it would be premature for us to make those decisions when the teachers really are the ones putting
it.
the rubber to the road there.
okay.
Still kind of fluid.
Yeah.
And then I really want to speak with the art teachers because they're going to be the ones who are experts in that area the most.
So I don't know how long it takes to create a masterpiece. So we're not having a meeting in December, right? And then our next meeting would be in January.
And I'm going to make contact with the teachers because they wanted to get ideas set up, for their pitch to the students in January.
Okay, perfect.
So, schools are coming back. Like my school comes back, January 9th. I think all the schools are
Yeah.
going back at that time. So then they would explain to the students. So they'd have about a month
Okay.
or so.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'm super excited and I love the idea of having a little friendly competition.
Yeah.
I think it'd be nice for them to be able to be recognized it makes them, I want to say maybe put more effort or more like motivation to make something really good.
And
Yeah.
I see it also as a way to put on a college application.
Oh, yeah,
as,
for
Like
sure.
recognition of this.
But yeah, I also think we should definitely recognize them with some sort of, I don't know, appreciation for doing this for the library. But yeah, I love it.
I wanted to check to see if Glendora High School has an orchestra
They do.
band, and so maybe have a little performance at the same time.
I know that they have 2 orchestras and sometimes they have little quartets, little groups.
I
that-
think
yeah.
not a full orchestra. 'Cause
Yeah.
that would be.
Yeah, I am
odd.
sure if you talk to the music instructors, they might be able to put together a quartet
Yeah.
to perform. And they can put that on their college application
Yeah,
too.
that would be cool.
Any other comments or questions? Suggestions? No? Okay. Do we need to have a motion or anything for this?
No action is needed
Okay.
at this time.
Got it. All right, on to unfinished business. Agenda item number 9, review orientation needs of new board members. Director Stone?
Absolutely. Thank you. Next slide, please. And next slide, please. So just a little bit of refresher about this. Each June, we do an annual, well, COVID, of course, all aside, we do an annual sort of orientation planning. In this particular case, this year, there was no special action taken in 2022. We proceeded pretty much as normal. Over the years, discussions at that time have included providing guidance and follow-up to incoming trustees on policies, processes, and procedures. Next slide, please. So as detailed in the staff report, we have completed a lot of aspects of onboarding, including welcomes, orientation, creating identification of different kinds, taking the oath of office in partnership, of course, with the city clerk's team, updates of websites and other public information that's on display in the library, that sort of thing. We do have some pending items still, including exploring whether any additional memberships are desired and any signature needs we might have to capture signature for documentation. Next slide, please. So basically, this is our opportunity for all of us together to discuss the orientation task status as detailed in the report. That's true for the incoming trustees as well as any returning trustees, and find out if there are any remaining needs for the new trustee, and provide any direction as needed. So just to make sure we're providing all of you, whether new or returning, the support you need.
I guess maybe Carrie, do you have any suggestions or things that you wish we could have done better, or things that you liked in terms of the onboarding?
I feel fully supported. So I thought the onboarding process was very, very thorough. It was sequential and strategic, so I felt educated. I didn't feel overwhelmed. We met periodically to get all of the tasks accomplished. So I thought it went very smoothly, and we built a nice relationship along the way. So I'm very happy.
Oh, good. I'm glad. And then Erica and Steven, do you guys have anything that you guys would like to suggest?
I have nothing to suggest. I've just felt overwhelming support, and I appreciate everybody's hard work and just taking the time to help me figure out like how to get it accustomed to being on the board, everything. Thank you.
Steven?
My only comment is that the orientation, like Trustee Johnson indicated, is very thorough. And it bears being reminded that orientation is not just one meeting or a series of meetings or a season. Orientation is a much longer process, which involves the leadership and the outstanding staff the library has. And 1 year and a half approximately into my term, I find myself being reintroduced and reoriented constantly. And I think that's a beautiful thing in the spirit of the library, which is not static in and of itself. So congratulations, Glendora Public Library, the administration, and all staff as well.
Awesome. And then lastly, Tomoko, I know it's been a while since we've been onboarded. Is there anything that you want to suggest?
I can't say anything as eloquently as
Steven.
Steven just did. I'll just say it's a privilege to be here, and thank you to Director Stone and the staff and the city staff for all of the support. Thank you.
Yeah, and I would like to echo the sentiments for everyone else. And I think since me and Tomoko have been onboarded, we've made changes and new additions to that. And I think that's what makes it more welcoming for people to hop on. And I just want to make sure that everyone knows that if they ever have any questions, that all of us are able to help each other out, given the Brown Act. And then I know Janet and the rest of the staff are always like responding right away to things that whatever we have questions for. So thank you. Is there any action item for this?
Well, we can do a receive and file since
Okay.
nobody else has any directives to provide.
Receive and file.
Does that require a actual motion?
Oh,
Yes, it
yeah, we
does.
do.
So
Oh.
we need a motion and a second. Perfect. We have,
I made a motion to receive
Motion.
and file.
perfect. Do we have a second? Perfect. So we have a motion that was made by Vice President Landman and seconded by President Chu. I will now conduct an oral roll call vote. Trustee Flowers,
Aye.
Trustee Johnson,
I,
Trustee Tolan,
Aye.
Vice President Landman,
Aye.
President Chu.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
And on to the last thing. Board and staff closing comments, or I mean, there's no new business. Just so everyone knows. And now on to board and staff closing comments. Do any of the trustees or staff have any questions or closing comments?
I have a question. I was just curious if trustee Johnson and trustee Flowers are available to see the like voting buttons. Are you? No, I was just curious how it worked on
With Zoom, no.
Yeah, okay.
They
all right.
cannot.
I'm
That's
just
why we have to
curious.
do an oral roll call.
Okay, cool. I see. And I just want to say thank you to everybody. Thanks. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. Kwanzaa. You know, this is the month of celebrating everybody. So I'll see you back in January. It was nice to see everybody.
Yeah, happy holidays to everybody. And I'm very thankful that I get to work together with all the board members here and all of the staff at the library. Anyone else? Nobody on Zoom either. Okay, so that is it. So I'd like to adjourn the meeting at 8:14.